Imagine stepping into a suburban living room in 1954. The television hums softly in the background, its black and white glow flickering across wallpaper patterned with pastel florals. A vinyl record spins in the corner, and in the kitchen where the real action always happens, something magnificent is waiting. The hostess calls, and there it is, the centerpiece of the night. A towering mold of lime green Jell-O, its translucent walls holding captive olives, shredded carrots, and maybe even, if you're unlucky, a slice of ham. To us today, it might look like a science experiment gone wrong, but in the 1950s, this was glamour. This was modernity. This was the future of food. Because the story of these forgotten fads isn't just about strange recipes. It's about a country redefining itself after years of war and depression. Food reflected optimism, convenience, and sometimes a playful leap into the bizarre. But it also revealed fears, social pressures, and the powerful pull of advertising. So let's step back in time, open up the kitchen cupboards of 1950s America, and uncover what these forgotten food fads reveal about who we were and why so many of them vanished. 1. A mid-century culinary time capsule. The 1950s marked a turning point in American kitchens. The war was over, prosperity was booming. Millions of families packed up, left the cities, and settled into shiny new suburbs. Along with the station wagon and the white picket fence came something else, the modern kitchen. For the first time, refrigerators and freezers were common. Electric mixers, blenders, and toasters made cooking easier than ever. Suddenly, dinner didn't have to be an all-day marathon. And the role of the housewife? She wasn't just expected to cook anymore, she was expected to dazzle. To be both a domestic goddess and a fashionable hostess. Canned cream of mushroom soup wasn't just soup. It was the foundation for casseroles that stretched $1 and filled a family. Boxed cake mixes promised homemade taste without the effort, making even the busiest mother a dessert champion. And Spam, that wartime staple, strutted its way into recipes like Spam pineapple bake, and even Spam pizza. But here's the twist. The 1950s weren't just about feeding your family. They were about showing off. Dinner wasn't just dinner, it was a performance. And that's where things got a little weird. 2. The rise and fall of the Jell-O empire. If one food ruled the decade, it was gelatin. Now, Jell-O wasn't new, it had been around since the late 1800s, but in the 50s, it became an empire. Entire cookbooks were dedicated to it. Advertisements called it modern, stylish, and endlessly versatile. Families molded gelatin into rings, towers, domes, and cubes. Sweet versions were layered with fruit cocktail and whipped cream. Savory versions known as aspics suspended vegetables, boiled eggs, or even entire slices of meat inside their shimmering walls. Why? Because Jell-O was futuristic. It was tidy. And most importantly, it was fun. You could prepare it in advance, serve it with pride, and feed a crowd without breaking a sweat. But gelatin wasn't alone on the culinary stage. The 50s also gave us tuna noodle casserole, crowned with crushed potato chips for crunch. Ham baked in Coca-Cola, a sweet and salty experiment straight out of the advertising playbook. Hot dog crown roasts where franks were stood upright in a circle and filled with mashed potatoes or beans. And yes, banana and mayonnaise sandwiches. Don't knock it till you've tried it, though most people didn't try it twice. Some of these dishes were genuinely creative. Others, they were marketing stunts. Food companies like Campbell's, Betty Crocker, and General Foods printed glossy recipe booklets, encouraging housewives to use their products in bold new ways. The logic was simple. The more recipes a product had, the more likely you were to buy it. And for a while, it worked. These recipes didn't just fill bellies, they symbolized progress. They told the world that a woman could serve something new, exciting, and above all, modern. 3. Why did they disappear? A taste evolution. If these foods were so beloved, why don't we eat them today? The answer is simple. America's taste evolved. By the late 1960s, the cultural winds had shifted. The health food movement began championing fresh produce, natural ingredients, and less processed meals. Suddenly, a salad suspended in lime gelatin didn't feel futuristic, it felt artificial. At the same time, America's exposure to global cuisines expanded. Italian dishes like pizza and lasagna became mainstream. Chinese restaurants moved from big cities into the suburbs. Mexican food introduced families to bold new flavors. Compared to these vibrant, flavorful options, a Jell-O salad seemed bland and outdated. Social changes played a role too. The 50s were about formality dinner parties, cocktail hours, potlucks where food doubled as entertainment. But as decades passed, families ate more casually, often around the TV. Who had time to unmold an aspic when you could just grab a plate of spaghetti or order a pizza? And then, of course, there was taste itself. Once people had better options, they realized maybe meat suspended in lime gel, wasn't such a great idea after all. 4. Unsung heroes and villains of 1950s innovation. Not everything from the 1950s was a flop. Some inventions genuinely reshaped American food culture. Take the frozen TV dinner. Introduced in 1953, it was revolutionary. For the first time, families could enjoy a hot meal turkey, peas, mashed potatoes without lifting a single pan. It wasn't just food. It was lifestyle. It mirrored the dominance of television in family life and the growing hunger for convenience. Casseroles also endured. Though mocked, they became comfort food classics. Today they use fresher ingredients, but the spirit remains, hearty, simple, and meant to feed a crowd. Boxed cake mixes are still with us too, refined over time to taste closer to homemade. That 1950s promise that anyone can bake still rings true at birthday parties across America. Of course, some recipes deserve to fade into obscurity. Perfection salad, for example, a cabbage slaw trapped in lime jello. Or the banana mayo sandwich, which lives on mostly as a punchline. But even the villains matter. They remind us that food is about experimentation. And not every experiment is meant to last. 5. A look back and a taste of today. In the end, these forgotten fads aren't just about strange dishes. They're about a nation in transition. The 1950s were an age of optimism, of belief in modernity and progress, and food mirrored those values. It was colorful, efficient, and always just a little daring. When we laugh at liverloaf aspics or cringe at hot dog crown roasts, we're not just laughing at food. We're re-looking at the hopes and ambitions of a generation that wanted to embrace the future with a casserole dish in hand. And truth be told, their influence lingers. Every time we reach for a frozen meal, whip up a quick casserole, or flip through a glossy recipe card, we echo the 1950s spirit of convenience and creativity. So next time you stumble across an old cookbook with bizarre recipes, don't close it in horror. See it for what it is, a time capsule. A deliciously weird story about who we were and how far we've come. 6. The strange beauty of candle salad. Picture this, a crisp bed of lettuce. On top, a golden pineapple ring. In the center, a peeled banana standing upright. A crown of mayonnaise rests on top, finished with a cherry, banana, mayo, cherry, pineapple, together. This, my friends, was the famous candle salad, marketed as a fun, kid-friendly way to eat fruit. It was meant to resemble, well, a candle. Today, it sparks more laughter than appetite. But in the 1950s, it reflected a playful spirit of food presentation, where creativity sometimes mattered more than logic. 7. Ham and bananas hollandaise. Now, if the candle salad made you chuckle, this next dish might make you squirm. Ham and bananas hollandaise. Yes, you heard that right, bananas wrapped in slices of ham, baked until warm, and then smothered in hollandaise sauce. To the modern eater, it sounds like a dare. But back then, it was praised as sophisticated. A sweet and savory combination decades before fusion cuisine became trendy. Bananas were booming thanks to better shipping and heavy marketing campaigns. Food companies wanted them in everything. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, even hot entrees. 8. The aspic obsession. Of course, no trip to the 1950s kitchen is complete without gelatin. But beyond the fruit molds we all know, there was a darker, saltier side, the aspic. Imagine hard-boiled eggs, shrimp, peas, even shredded cabbage suspended in shimmering, jiggling lemon gelatin. One recipe was proudly titled Perfection Salad, though, depending on who you ask, perfection wasn't the first word that came to mind. Aspics were admired for their beauty and practicality. They held their shape, They could be prepared ahead of time, and they looked impressive on a buffet table. But as anyone who has ever tasted cold shrimp in lime jello can tell you, not every culinary innovation deserves a comeback. 9. Meatloaf reinvented. Not every dish was so outrageous. Some, like meatloaf, became true American icons, but even meatloaf wasn't safe from reinvention. Cookbooks suggested topping it with instant mashed potatoes and broiling until golden, or hiding hard-boiled eggs inside so every slice revealed a surprise. And yes, there were even recipes for meatloaf suspended in gelatin. Still, meatloaf endured because it symbolized comfort, thrift, and family. Unlike candle-shaped bananas, it remains firmly on American tables today. 10. The casserole kingdom. If gelatin was the queen of the 1950s table, casseroles were the king. The formula was simple: a starch like noodles or rice, a protein like tuna or chicken, a can of condensed soup, and a crunchy topping: potato chips, cornflakes, or fried onions. Casseroles fed a crowd, traveled easily to church suppers, and became a staple of potlucks and family dinners. Heavy? Sometimes. Inspired? Not always. But they reflected the values of the decade: practicality, community, and togetherness. The food of the 1950s wasn't just about taste, it was about imagination, identity, and the dream of a brighter, modern future. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe American Reminds channel.